Well, here we are, the butt crack of dawn in Butte, Montana. And up there, if I can get it to focus. Okay, that shiny white dot up there, way up on the top of that hill, is the lady of our worthless miracle. I'm still waiting for somebody to go and tell me what exactly the lady of the worthless miracle, what she's from. We're in Butte, Montana, butt crack of dawn. Why do they even say that? Why do they call it the butt crack of dawn? That doesn't even make sense. Is that just like where it starts? How it is? I don't know. It's early. I'm usually up earlier, but heading home. So today, we're going to discuss Montana names and where they came from. And this seat is really cold, so let's get going. So, take Butte, Montana, for instance. Name of towns to start with, since we're here in lovely Butte, Montana. Butte originally got its name not because of the butte on the top of a mountain where it's like goes up and it's flat. Like most towns are considered armpits of the state, Butte wasn't even that good. They called it Butte. But since that's not really a nice thing to say about a town, calling it a butt, they added "-ny" just to kind of go and make it sound more appropriate. And yes, I'm going to McDonald's for breakfast. Don't judge me. So, Butte was originally Butte because this place was not good enough to be called the armpit of Montana. You're welcome. Our next town that we're coming up on, see if we can get this on here. It's called Divide Wisdom. Divide Wisdom is just outside of the town Feely. Now granted, I didn't get to take a picture or video of Feely because it came up a little too fast. But yes, there's a town called Feely, Montana. The people of Feely came up with this name because, well, they're kind of touchy. So, the other part of the town that is close to Feely was Wisdom. Now, they had to go and separate one town from the other, and so that separation was a divide. So they came up with the town Divide Wisdom from Feely. So Feely was all touchy-feely. Wisdom, they were a little too smart for that. So, needless to say, they divided themselves from Feely. So that is where the town name Feely and the town name Divide Wisdom came from. And the name of this is Steve. He's my bug. Been hanging out with him for a while now. This street's name is Moose Creek. Got that name because there's a creek going along here that all the moose tend to hang out at in the winter. It basically turns to mush. The moose go in and get stuck there and die. It's kind of traumatic, I know. Now you would think in the winter it would all be frozen, but it's before everything gets frozen. But it's pretty bad. Tons of dead moose there. So they named it Moose Creek. pretty sunrise. This is the less pretty part of Montana. Ain't nothing like really exciting or anything. But still. South of Dillon, Montana is a really cool canyon. And there's a buffalo. Right there. So, coming up here, this next spot is Grasshopper Creek. During the summers, the creek smells really, really bad. That's it right there. And it attracts millions and millions of grasshoppers. It's really gross. But this canyon here, it's fun to drive through, going pretty fast. Usually I can do it one-handed. The other hand's holding on to my sippy cup, because my sippy cup sometimes tips over. But I love this canyon because, one, it reminds me a little bit of Arizona, driving through the northeast corner of Arizona. That sign says Dallas. They wanted to be like Dallas, Texas, but that name was already taken. But this is what I think is cool about this canyon here. It's those rocks. I think it's really cool. Really pretty. It's just a really pretty drive through here. For the rest of it, not so. This river is called the Beaverhead River. It gets its name because one time when the pioneers were coming through, the Indians would go and cut the heads off of beavers and throw them in that river. So when the pioneers were coming through, all they would see are the heads of beavers. Pretty disturbing if you ask me. But the rest of the beaver was taken for liners of their coats and their clothes and their moccasins. Little tidbit of information there on that one too. Gosh, Montana is full of history. These towns are amazing. So are the creeks. This place is called Kid, named after Billy the Kid, not Kid Rock or Ugly Kid Joe, but Billy the Kid. It's actually pretty. Believe it or not, this town is named Dell. This town's got a little bit of history behind it. Richard Dell came from Europe about, 100 years ago and founded this little town. His great-grandson created Dell Computers. Crazy. Dell Computers started in this little tiny town here named Dell. Then his his grandson. So let's see, 100 years. Yeah. Anyways, they had a daughter. They wanted to name her after the town that her great grandfather founded. If it was a boy, it was going to be Dell. If it was a girl, well, they had to come up with something. They can't go and name a girl Dell, because that's kind of a strange name. So they named her Dell. So that little town back there was actually where Adele was born, or where she got her name from. She was born in a hospital. So that's Adele, and that's the town Dell. Who knew? People thought that she was born in Europe. Nope. Adele got her name from Dell. And Dell Computers got its name from Dell. It's a popular, famous little town. And this town is Lima. Nothing but farmers here. And they farm, you guessed it, lima beans. Appropriate name. Hoping this one shows up okay with the sun. About a mile away from it. Actually, the sun is really making Steve show up really good. Look at him. Snug as a bug in a rug. Something like that. Now, all the towns that we've seen so far have had really interesting history behind it. This one is no different. It's called Manita. Now, if you can see here on this sign, mile marker 0. That means that we are crossing the border from Montana to Idaho. Now the town, Manita, wonder if I can get it better going that way, maybe. Manita gets its name because we are now on the border of Montana and Idaho. Montana being the Mon, Ida being the Idaho. Welcome to Idaho. So, Manita is a conjunction? Is the joining of two states, Montana and Idaho, making Manita. And that's the truth. And all of these towns, if you don't believe me on the history of the name, they believe me. Google it. And then in the responses below, you can tell me how wrong I am. There's an incentive for you to go and look up something on the internet and then make a comment. It's true. All the towns that you've seen so far, that's where they're from. We're now coming up on a little town in Idaho called Spencer. Now, no, this is not one of those like, here, let me tell you the history behind Spencer. What it is, though, is I want to show you something random and just downright strange. This is the Spencer Cemetery. People are just dying to get in there, right? This is an honest to goodness outhouse right next to the cemetery. So next time someone talks about how civilized and up to date and all this other stuff, the Idaho is, cutting edge. Just remember, we still use outhouses out here. It's crazy. Well, I hope everyone has enjoyed their history lesson on the history of Montana towns and their names. And hopefully you have learned something new and exciting. So till then, subscribe, comment, share, and enjoy. Just know, it's freaking freezing out there. See ya. Okay, one last thing. Those are the Tetons. The Tetons got their name from a French explorer, no lie, who, when he looked at those, he thought of a woman. That's as far as I'm gonna go with that. But that last part is the truth. So, the end of Montana, Idaho history.